Hello and welcome to Screact, or welcome back to. Today we're going to be looking at, we're seeing, too many Brits are too ignorant on this. The video by Novara Media about the ignorance of Northern Ireland from the British people. Let's go ahead and dive into their video.
Boris Johnson is responsible for renewed instability in Northern Ireland. The hard Brexit he favoured threatened the Good Friday Agreement.
He was gone.
And now, egged on by the Tories, the DUP are holding the Northern Irish Assembly to ransom until the UK dumps the Northern Ireland Protocol. It's a mess of Britain's making. And I have a theory as to how we got here. It's that barely anyone in Britain knows anything about Northern Ireland.
True.
This was an audience intervention on this week's Question Time.
I want to know what they're going.
I don't know what's changed since I went to school, but Northern Ireland was always part of Great Britain.
No, you idiot. Seriously, that is false to an impressive degree. In fact, theoretically speaking, there are people alive today who would have been alive before Northern Ireland was part of Great Britain. Northern Ireland was formed after the War of Independence in Ireland. And after Ireland was given free states, or not real freedom, but so in actual fact, it's not really accurate to say that's false. There are literally people alive today who were alive before Northern Ireland was formed into Britain, sort of thing.
So for the EU to start negotiating and introduce this border, what's it got to do? We don't have a problem with stuff going from England to Wales or England to Scotland.
Did you notice, buddy? Did you notice when when you were at school and Northern Ireland was always part of Great Britain? You remember, when you had geography, and remember when you look at that little map there, and you look at that little landmass that England is part of. Did you notice that the two other places that England isn't, England just isn't, is Scotland and Wales? Those are two other countries. Did you notice that what wasn't there, Aegis? It was the state, not the landmass, known as Northern Ireland. So that might be a reason why. Another reason why might be, did you notice the way Scotland is still outside the EU as well? And they're still part of the United Kingdom. Yeah, that means, you see, is that Scotland, which is connected to, and so is Wales. However, a little funny thing, but did you notice that actually? Remember when you were also in geography, and the Northern Irish area? Remember when you looked down, and there was a place called the Republic of Ireland, and basically, I know this is shock, but they're actually in the EU. I know. Shh, don't tell anyone. But that's why.
So, as Northern Ireland's part of Great Britain, why should we have this border? Why don't someone grow a pair and tell the EU to go and sling their
Jesus Christ, man, there's no need to be vulgar.
Because it's part of the Great Britain, it's not part of the EU.
The Great Britain. Yes, now just...
Southern Ireland is, but Northern Ireland ain't.
No, Southern Ireland. No. The Republic of Ireland, you thick idiot. I know, sorry, no, I shouldn't say that, because it's an understandable thing to say. Like, you've got North Korea and South Korea, that might make you believe that every single place with North in its name, the alternative would be South. But it isn't actually in this case. It's Republic of. Because for some reason, the people who formed Ireland wanted to make it feel as if it was a republic, even though it fucking isn't.
Northern Ireland is not and has never been part of Great Britain.
Yeah.
Great Britain is the name for the island made up of England, Scotland and Wales. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom. And more concretely, there is a reason that after Brexit trade with
Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But when I was saying that, I was saying anyway, Northern Ireland never it's even then.
Northern Ireland can't be the same as trade between England, Scotland and Wales. It's called the Good Friday Agreement, a document which ended decades of violence caused by, yes, British colonialism.
But not only that, but there's a physical difference, You're going to have to transport it out of water,
Now, at this point, you might be asking why we're picking on some random guy in the audience for having a poor grasp of the history and politics of Britain and Ireland, and you might have a point. But the same can't be said for our next clip. Suella Braverman is Britain's Attorney General. She's the cabinet member taking a lead on the Northern Ireland Protocol, and this is what she said on Question Time.
What we've also seen is a wholesale collapse of the political institution
There's no need to shout speak.
governing Northern Ireland. We've seen the Stormont executive collapse because the majority of MLAs, the members of the executive who are unionists, refuse to support the protocol and refuse to take part in that executive. That's a precondition for the Good Friday Agreement. That is damaging the Good Friday Agreement, the foundation of peace. It is damaging the delivery of services for the Northern Irish people. It's damaging trust in Northern Ireland as part of the United Kingdom. And as a government...
Who's losing trust? Just saying. I'm not. I don't trust I don't trust the English government, but I trust well, to an extent. But I'm not. I didn't lose trust out of that. I lost trust in England when they. Well, actually, no, I didn't lose trust. I always knew they were like conservative wannabes. But it doesn't really make much sense because what?
Government, and as a Conservative, a proud Conservative and Unionist Party member, I cannot sit by and watch the breakup of our United Kingdom.
What Suella Braverman said there was simply false.
Yeah.
She said the majority of MLAs in the Northern Irish Assembly were unionists. In fact, only 41% of MLAs are, with the rest being nationalist or non-aligned.
Yeah.
Even more significant was her lie about the protocol. Braverman suggested the majority of MLAs oppose the Northern Ireland Protocol, but in fact, both Sinn Féin and the Cross Community Alliance Party back it.
True.
There is a majority in favour of the protocol. And it really is worth emphasising.
The fact is that because the Alliance Party isn't considered hasn't been considered a unionist party, it means that you can't have a unionist and nationalist party in power because there aren't the numbers. So, well.
Braverman is the person in the cabinet with the biggest role in determining Britain and Northern Ireland's future relationship. And she's either lying about Northern Ireland or has absolutely no idea what's going on there.
In fairness, I think politicians are thick enough to listen to their advisors, and their advisors get most of the stuff from shady people. So it is very possible that she just listened to her advisors, didn't bother looking up the history or the politics. Very concerning for a politician. And just listen to people she was around, and then that might lead her to believe that, because it's possible,
To Aaron on this in one moment. First, though, I can't resist showing you the original, the classic clip of an audience member's big brain take on the politics of Ireland. It's from a couple years ago, but worth watching again.
Another point I'm going to make is the DUP and the EU seem to be really levering the Ireland backstop thing for the whole of Brexit. There's thousands of issues, I'm sure, to do with Brexit, but it's always to do with the Good Friday Agreement, the DUP, the Northern Ireland backstop, all this. I'm like, well, why does that one issue stop and put a big break on the whole thing, and we have to negotiate around that? Why doesn't it, it's going to sound crazy, but Ireland being referred to as Ireland, the island of Ireland, why don't we try and just get that as an island again, and then...
Oh, he wants to unite Ireland. Well, at least people who want to rejoin Ireland will agree with him there. But unfortunately, I think the people who don't want to join Ireland, who want to stay in the UK, might have a problem with that.
Then we can carry on with our own thing.
What, just no longer have Northern Ireland...
Break up the union?
Yes, break up, no longer have it as part of
No.
Yeah, just
the United Kingdom.
Ireland, the whole of Ireland.
Sorry, I love that clip. Obviously, I am much more sympathetic to that guy than the first one we showed you. But the compilation of all three clips do show how little most people in Britain have ever thought about Ireland. Obviously,
no, I mean, in fairness, though, that guy would be right, was it not, for the existence of people who don't want Ireland to be joined together, and who want Northern Ireland and possibly more territory to be joined with the UK. So in fairness to him, that's not necessarily wrong. It's just kind of, it is a theoretical possibility. It just would lead to a lot of violence, because of those people whose opinions are that they want to be part of the UK. So
That guy in the polo shirt didn't invent the concept of Irish unity, despite what he might imagine.
Yeah.
Aaron, how much does it matter, this ignorance in Britain of the politics of Ireland and Northern Ireland?
It's like, what? Say that again, buddy. Imagine if we joined the island all together. We never thought of that, huh? What was that Civil War all for? Well,
I'll correct you there,
I
actually.
could argue some people got involved in the Civil War so they could seize power, Not naming it, no, Amy de Valera. Basically, not everyone who was involved in the Civil War was necessarily for what the majority of people's reasons were.
I'll push back on the premise of the question. I would say the ignorance is primarily English. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people in Wales or Scotland who would say something similar. Of course they would. But I think that...
I think they'd be more inclined to be,
England in particular, there is a unique ignorance about our sense of national identity and also our political identity. So what do I mean?
Sure.
Well, I think for most English people, there is a lack of awareness and understanding, or even actually caring, fundamentally, about, well, what's the difference between Great Britain and the United Kingdom, which is, of course, Great Britain and Northern Ireland? What's the difference between England and Britain?
And not just Northern Ireland. It's called Great Britain and Northern Ireland, but there's also includes a lot of little islands both ways.
And, up until the Second World War, the 50s, the 60s, it was quite common to sort of use Britain and England interchangeably. And there is a reason for this, which is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is composed of 4 states and overwhelmingly, 4 nations rather, overwhelmingly the largest is England. I think out of 65 million people, 56 million.
Population-wise, not size. Maybe actually, I think England. Well, that was it. England took a bunch of Wales with them, actually, and formed it into England, which is interesting because you remove that bit, and there's all sorts of geopolitical things here. But
English and Britain itself, the concept of Britain as a nation.
Also, the majority of people are actually centered around London and like areas around London. So if you bombed that, you get actually a good load of people out of the population.
Emerges from the collapse of the world's largest ever empire, which was the British Empire. And so we're only sort of 2-3 generations into that, Mike.
Well, I mean,
and so the older
that depends now. That
emerges from the collapse of the world's largest ever empire.
That depends what you mean by largest ever. Like, you could argue as a percentage of territory known about, the Romans had a lot of it. I don't know what it is. I forgot what the thing was again. But like, as a percentage of territory known about, all the different empires structured. Like, Russia have and had as well a lot of territory that they seized. Austro-Hungarians, Prussians, Persians, a lot of different territory that in time has meant that there have been different known amounts of the world. So obviously, if you own all of the known world, then you own 100% of the known world. You know what I mean? But obviously, you may only own 10% or 5%.
Which was the British Empire. And so we're only sort of 2-3 generations into that, Michael. And so the older gentleman there, just talking complete crap, he was probably raised in a sort of post-imperial context. Let's say he's born in 1950, 55. The political atmosphere within which he grew up was very much one of this polity is effectively still a continuation of the British Empire, which unraveled kind of slowly through to the mid-1960s. So there are concrete explanations why.
I mean, technically, Ireland fully left by 1940s, but
English people in particular are so bad on this. I find the default quite interesting. It has manifestations like that, which are negative, and it has positive ones, like the gentleman in the turtleneck. But I also think it's the default of most English people when they're, and I think this is quite rare, and I think it's very positive actually, when they're confronted with, oh, well, Scotland might vote to leave the UK. Okay, well, that might be good or bad. They might be unhappy or sad, whatever, but that's their business. And I think generally speaking, that is the default with regards to Scotland, Northern Ireland. I'm not saying it's the position of the elite or of the media
What's
or
not?
Westminster or MI5, because it ain't.
Yeah, it's like, no. Scotland should stay in here, even if they vote undemocratic, even if they vote democratically to leave. Yeah, that seems like imperialism, like the definition.
I'm talking.
Mm.
I'm talking in regards to the electorate. There is public opinion which is more favourable to that than there is, say, in Spain towards independence for Catalonia.
True. I think as well, though, outside of Spain, in general, I think people's feeling towards Catalonia is worse outside. Like I am personally in favour if the Catalonians want independence, if the Scottish want independence, if the Welsh want independence, if the Northern Irish, no, if we all want independence, I believe we should get it. I've written stories before where there's independence movements and they've succeeded and all this sort of stuff, and that's the thing, and that obviously they wouldn't exist. Those independents wouldn't have succeeded in the conventional world, in the actual real world, because that's not how politicians really work things. So it's very hard to win an election when you're just like, oh, we just hand over territory that you wanted to keep, but the people in the territory didn't want you to keep. If you know what I mean. Once again, this kind of BS of there was this with Ukraine where it's like, oh yeah, but do you understand? It doesn't really matter if the Russian government want to keep parts of Ukraine. I think it matters when maybe the Ukrainians, maybe they should be ones voting. A very weird policy as well. I don't get this with certain people who are opposed to independence movements. It's like, like, oh, they've been part of them for years. Like, well, if you're going to invade a country, yeah, then that country's going to be part of you for years. That's how it works. You invaded them.
We've seen that time after time with opinion polling. And I think, ironically enough, I think that ambivalence about whether or not these nations leave the Union is partly born out of ignorance.
Well, I mean, I think clearly in the case of Brexit, the ignorance of, I probably agree with you as well, the ignorance of England has done a lot of damage because, there was a settlement which worked for both communities. Wow. Essentially, predominantly England voted for an outcome which completely undermined that without knowing or caring why or how. And then you've had a government which has behaved completely irresponsibly towards Northern Ireland, by signing the protocol and then ripping up the protocol. And now they don't have a devolved government, essentially because the Tories are ragging on the DUP. They're pretending the DUP position is the majority position when it's absolutely not the majority position. The majority position in Northern Ireland is in favour of the protocol. So you have got an English government which is playing games with Northern Ireland, and I think that the reason they are able to do that and act so irresponsibly is because of their own ignorance, but also the fact that it's not going to become a live electoral issue because no one really understands it.
Not only that, but like they don't really care personally. Like British politicians just do not care. They care about Scotland because, like, Scotland, like, if the British government were, really, really wanted, like, green energy and were all for the green energy, they wouldn't really care about Scotland. Because most of Scotland's benefits to the English government as a net benefit are things like, Scottish energy. Very valuable source. But when you are a government that really wants to go into fracking and all these things, it's like, oftentimes it's just more beneficial just to sort of, it's, if you can frack in Scotland, but the Scottish people don't want you to, well, you're the English government, so you just overrule them. But of course, if instead the Scottish say, no, we want independence, you won't be able to do that. Doesn't matter if you're able to frack here, you will not be allowed to. Or you'll have to pay money to the Scottish government, which I somehow think, you're kind of stupid if you're going to set up fracking plants, to be honest, because, they're very harmful to the environment and, not great to be spending a bunch of money on energy production when, we need to be moving towards green energy,
But I think you are right. When it comes to, an actual vote for independence, especially in the case of, Scotland, that seems, more plausible in the very near future. The indifference of the English might be quite helpful. It's just
very near is a bit debatable,
live and let live. Well, if they want to go on their own
Yeah.
way, fine. If they want to stay, they can stay. If they want to go, they want to go. Which is probably the right attitude towards self-determination.
It's like, they've got the sort of the Chad meme, and then you've got like the kind of like the guy crying. So that's like MI5, and the BBC is like, no, you need to care about the union. And they're like, like this guy in the turtleneck. I have no idea what's going on. Let them do what they want to do. We kind of saw that a little bit in 2014.
I mean, the problem, of course, with the guy in the turtleneck is that he seems to understand the fact that there are people in Northern Ireland who want to stay part of the UK. Obviously, in Scotland, there's far less people who are in support of that level. Like, I don't think there are many people in Scotland who are willing to commit violence in order to keep inside the UK.
I don't think many people saw Scottish independence as viable. Ultimately, it lost by 10%, which is a big margin. If you look at, for instance, Trident missiles are based...
I mean, in fairness, when you've got the transphobic, person who managed to make billions off of fantasy books, J.K. Rowling funding her No campaign, where she's insulting Nicola Sturgeon now, seriously, it's 10% though is not really a big margin when you think about it, because I would say you do need a certain amount of margin in order to get beyond that. I would say generally to change something major, you want at least 50 to 53%, because there's always an issue, especially as well, where you have parts, like in Northern Ireland, there are parts that will be like 90%, they would join with Ireland. But then there are other parts that are like 89% that would want to be with the UK. The issue with that is that effectively you're saying two parts of areas, like specific areas that could theoretically be viable on their own, just saying, that you can't have your connection with England, or you can't have your connection with Ireland, because the rest of the population see it differently, that's a problem. I think the one benefit of a place like Northern Ireland is that it really, because it's a state created out of, gerrymandering in a way, and drawing boundaries, it means that you could theoretically just redraw the boundaries, and let the states, let the counties that are, bordering on Ireland that want to join Ireland in, and then let the ones who don't want to join Ireland, let them stay in the UK. That is a possible alternative. People have argued before. You can't really argue for, well, then Northern Ireland wouldn't be viable, because a lot of people argue that a lot of counties in Northern Ireland aren't necessarily viable on their own anyway. They need assistance from the UK, and it's areas in Northern Ireland that also then benefit them. There are some areas that aren't net gains, basically what I'm saying. So basically, it doesn't really matter whether it's Irish or the UK that are supporting them. That's just really something there,
Based in deep water ports in Scotland, it'd be very hard to relocate them. I think if there was another referendum with regards to Scotland, I think you'd see the whole NATO thing, and somehow if Scotland leaves the Union, it means we're exposed to Russia. God knows how. These would be...
Yeah, I think somehow Scotland has a deep connection with England still. There are many Scottish people who want to step away from the English, but then the actual Scottish Nationalist Party don't seem to be too prone to removing every little thing. It's like, you still want the king? It's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
These would be the arguments in circulation. I think it would be far more venomous and angry than the first time round, but that would be pushed by the media, by elite discourse. It wouldn't be coming from the bottom.
True. I think most things don't come from the bottom anyway. It's just that some things are the bottom agrees with the top. But yeah, anyway, there we are. Like the video, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, and all of that stuff. Thank you for watching. Please do go ahead and check the links in the description, all these other things. And yeah, I'll see you